It was such a beautiful introduction. Wow, this is I'm tearing up. This was unexpected. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Making It in Holland, a channel all about expat life and entrepreneurship here in the Netherlands. In this episode, I want to get quite personal with you guys and share with you my personal story of moving to the Netherlands and how that has been going so far. Before diving into the video, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. So I moved to the Netherlands already back in 2004. At the time, I was 11 years old. And the reason why I moved to the Netherlands was because of my parents' job. Now, if you're an adult, you know that moving from one country to another actually comes with quite a lot to consider. And when you're a kid, you also experience the move in a different level. For me, at the time, I was happy living in Izmir, Turkey. I was just wrapping up elementary school. I had a circle of friends, and it was just this like transition period from being a kid to a teenager slowly. So when I moved to the Netherlands, the first initial months for me were actually quite difficult and challenging, as you might expect. When I moved, I spoke zero Dutch. I spoke very, very limited English. And by that I mean I really couldn't have any conversations in English. I could maybe read and write a little bit and just know some basic conversational things, but not a lot to be able to express myself fully. I mean, back then I was still learning Turkish properly to be able to make proper sentences and express myself. So you can imagine how big of a change it was for me to drop all of that in Turkey, move to a brand new country, grow up, make friends, learn the language, adjust to the culture. Now looking back, I'm actually quite proud of myself and how I managed to handle all of that, because let me tell you, it was actually quite a lot. One of my earliest memories of the Netherlands is when me and my mom came to meet my dad finally after several months of not seeing each other. Because my dad had to start his job a little bit earlier and I was still in Turkey with my mom because I had to finish elementary school, and my mom was also wrapping up things from her job and from her retirement. She was arranging a lot of stuff about the move as well. So the earliest memory is of me and my mom arriving at Schiphol airport and my dad greeting us. And I remember he had this flower with a teddy bear attached to it, and he also had this balloon that they sell in Schiphol that you can buy to greet people who are coming to see you. And for me, that was such an unusual experience because I've never seen anything like that before. In Turkey, people don't usually bring such things to greet people at the airport. And what really struck me was it wasn't only my dad who had such things, some other people had them too. So that was my first experience as an 11-year-old girl coming to this brand new country and being greeted with a flower that had a toy teddy bear on it, which was basically a dream come true because at that age, all you really care about are toys. And I remember my dad taking us and us heading to where he was staying temporarily, which was in Scheveningen. And this was in summertime. So this was August, if I remember correctly. Me and my mom would travel around and explore the place. And during that time, the weather was so beautiful. And I remember my dad had, and he still has, this foldable bike that I could take out to bike around. And for me, that was also so incredible because in Turkey, you don't really just bike around like that, and you don't really have designated like roads on which you can bike. I'll never forget this kind of like freedom I felt the first time I could just freely bike by this canal with these greenery, these trees, and the weather gorgeous and beautiful. And you know, like I thought that's how it was going to be always, and then of course winter came, and then I realized the weather here works completely differently. But these first few memories of me moving to the Netherlands are still very much embedded in my head, And when I look back and think about them, I do get a little bit nostalgic, but they were really good times. Like, I really remember enjoying spending time with my mom, exploring as well. I remember Scheveningen being a beautiful place. We would walk by the beach. There was this like little shopping arcade there, which is still there next to the fancy hotel, Kurhaus. And in that store, I remember coming across Harry Potter merchandise. Guys, if you're an 11-year-old kid and it's year 2004, you are a Harry Potter fan. And I was like one of the biggest fans of all. And this shop had both candy and they were selling Harry Potter miniatures. So every time we would go there, like on a weekly basis, I would show my mom things that I want to purchase and she would purchase them for me. So this is how I actually ended up building a pretty incredible Harry Potter collectibles collection. And all of these collectibles are like hand painted and one of a kind, and they were all produced like in 1999 or something. So, you know, they're like 20 years old now, and that's pretty much like an antique. And I'm hoping to keep them for the rest of my life and maybe even pass them on to like the next generation of my family. That was really awesome. Like, I'm going a little bit off topic here, but like that whole experience of being in a new country, experiencing like a different kind of like approach to shopping, being able to see like such cool items was awesome. Like, these kind of things I didn't really see in Turkey. But of course, I also have to mention here that as time went on and as school properly started, it was difficult for me to learn the language. It was difficult for me to make friends. But once I actually got over that, I really started to enjoy my school. So I went to the American School of The Hague. For those of you who don't know, it is based in Wassenaar, where we also have a house. And in that school, I have some awesome memories as well as some pretty terrible ones. But my favorite one was my English as a second language teacher, Arlette. If you're watching this, hello, I really enjoyed your classes. I really felt like I was at home. You had this like super beautiful energy working with children, and you were a really good teacher. I think one of the reasons why I managed to pick up English quite quickly was because of Arlette, but also because of the friends I made. So, ladies, if you're watching this, you know who you are. I'm really getting super nostalgic talking about this. Like, I feel like I'm also a little bit tearing up because, wow, like right now in my head, I'm really going down the memory lane. And wow, it was really good times. Like, I really can't complain. I had a really good time. The transition, of course, in the beginning was a little bit challenging, but overall I would say like my middle school and my high school experience was wonderful. To add on top of that, one of the big highlights again was meeting my theater teacher that I worked with throughout high school, already back in middle school, and I was introduced to him by the art teacher. So Jennifer and Anthony are still like some of my favorite people ever. I will never forget walking down the kind of wing of the school where the choir and the band rooms are located, and from there you also have the backstage entrance to the theater. I'll never forget like walking down there with the art teacher, and then Miss Kular introduced me to Mr. Cunningham, whom then we just started calling Mr. C then onwards. And I'll never forget like being so like welcomed and like, oh my god, I'm getting so emotional. It was just so welcoming, and he told me he also lived in Turkey for a while. He was in Istanbul and he loved it, and like I just felt this connection. And I think like when you feel that connection, you really feel like you're kind of like belonging to a place, and it was such a beautiful introduction. Wow, this is I'm tearing up. This was unexpected. I really like, it was just such a beautiful moment for me to be able to have that connection, and I'm so grateful that I did, because After that, I think what made my experience was my involvement within the art scene at school. So I did a lot of art, I was part of the drama club, and I also did a lot of musical theater, and I really felt like I belonged and I was at home. And it was just such a beautiful time. Like, it was such a beautiful experience. When I look back and think about it, like, I get teary, but these are all super happy tears because I really wouldn't change that experience to anything else. So if you're watching, thank you. Really, it was such a wonderful experience being part of the art world and being really so welcomed and integrated into the culture here. It was just like I have so little bad things to say about my whole high school experience. Moving on from that, I actually moved to England for my bachelor degree. The reason for that was everybody around me was moving to another city, especially the American kids were going back to the States to continue to study there, and some of my close friends actually were also moving to the States to study there. And I thought it was kind of like a normal thing that I also move somewhere else, kind of like close the chapter of high school and then open up another chapter, which is university. So I chose, I want to go somewhere not so far away, but also somewhere where the education language is still English. So I thought, England, I'm going to go to England. And you know, I really wanted to go to the University of Cambridge because I actually don't know why. Like, at the time, it just was like so prestigious. I was 18 and I thought that's what I had to do if I wanted to be successful. I ended up applying but also getting rejected from University of Cambridge, which is also a wonderful story. So if you manage to stick to this part, I'm going to also be telling you that. We were in Canterbury, in Kent, which is in the southeast of England, a beautiful green place, not too far away from Ashford and London. And if you know Ashford, that's basically like one of the first stops that Eurostar comes out, which connects like England to the like European continent. And we were in a hotel in Canterbury because we were visiting the University of Kent, and I was completing my application for Cambridge. I will never forget the moment something came to me and I thought of this. I'm not exaggerating when I say this. I thought, why are you completing this application for Cambridge? You know that you're going to actually end up here in Kent. These were my exact thoughts, and this is exactly what happened. After Cambridge, I switched my radar to Bath, which I didn't get into, but I did manage to get into University of Kent in Canterbury. And like a year after this happened, I moved to Canterbury to start studying architecture there at the Faculty of Architecture. Can you believe like how crazy that is? Do you guys believe that like sometimes you have these moments and you have these thoughts and these thoughts really dictate your reality? I'm such a big believer of that, and that is one of those moments that I will like never ever forget because this is exactly what happened. So when I fast forward from my experience in Kent to moving back to the Netherlands, that was again like reverse culture shock, because I came back here to live with my parents again in Wassenaar to work in an architecture office for a 6-month internship. And I always had this goal that after the internship is over, I'll probably go back to England again to do a master's degree, and maybe that will be in London. However, I also applied to master degrees in London after my 6-month internship at an architecture office, and yeah, I got rejected, which meant I actually had to resume my master's studies here in the Netherlands at Eindhoven University of Technology, which I did not want to do. So for me, those 2 years were actually kind of a tough experience because I was in a place where I didn't really want to be. it felt like I was going backwards because I was in England and now I had to come back. And for me, in my head, that was like not moving forwards but going backwards, because in my head I always had this idea that I would end up living in a big city like London. So purely because of all these like things going on in my head and not really loving the degree that I was studying, my experience in Eindhoven was a really strange one, where I managed to create more drama for myself than any other normal sane person would. But also I didn't focus so much on my studies. I was not really attentive, and I had kind of like lost this attachment to the degree of architecture, but also was having a hard time like re-meeting people again and making connections again. So when you're a third culture kid and you move from like place to place, you always have to like adapt and adjust and make friends all over again. And I had done that already for so many years that when it came to studying my master's, for me it was like a moment of like having a serious burnout, because I was throwing all these parties, bringing all these people over with the hopes that I'll have friends again, I'll make connections, and I'll meet a lot of people. But it all ended up backfiring on me after that, because I realized that it's not about the quality of people you meet, but it's about the quantity of the people you meet. When I go back and reflect on that experience, it's kind of like a sad realization. But at the same time, I feel like it just really made me strong to take on the real world of working in an architecture office, which is like a whole other long story of its own that I'm going to film for another episode. And if you stuck until this part in the episode, thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and enter my first ever YouTube giveaway. Details in the video up here, and I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, don't forget to stay awesome. Bye bye.